Our eminent panelists have a vast body of knowledge and experience in this area. So, with a huge round of applause, please welcome our experts for today, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma and Dr. Adil Rashid. Currently holding the General Bipin Rawat Chair of Excellence at USI, researching modern warfare and future force. Could you please say a few words, Professor?
The book, without referring to it, addresses an issue which I find very important. There is no chapter built into it. That's the identity of Pakistan. Pakistan hai kya? I wish one of the chapters was named as identity. हमारी पहचान क्या है? India की पहचान क्या है? We have a pehchan of 5,000 years. You know, we have a culture that binds us, and it is irrespective of religion. There's a culture that binds us. That is why Shankaracharya of the South India, when traveled in so many years ago, all the way up north, or even today, Nambudripad Brahmins are the Pandits of Pashupati Nath in Kathmandu. Even today, what binds Kerala with Pashupati Nath in Nepal? That's the binding of a nation. What binds? What's the identity of Pakistan? That, I think, though it's not been inherently mentioned, but it is referred here, and that's the problem of Pakistan. Unki pehchan nahi bani. They don't have an identity created, which most nations have. It's a very significant issue. So what is identity of Pakistan? Is it Islamic? Is Islam the identity of Pakistan? No. Major part of Islamic nation of Pakistan split away in 1971 and became Bangladesh. So Islam was not a binding factor for Pakistan. They couldn't bind two parts of Pakistan together. So Islam is not a binding factor. What's the binding factor? What binds that nation? हर country में कुछ glue चाहिए ना, गोंद चाहिए. उनका गोंद एक ही है. Anti-Indianism. Only anti-Indianism binds the nation. Otherwise, Sindhis will become Sindhis and Baluchis will become Baluchis. And Pashtuns are already Pashtuns, and of course, Punjabis are, I'm also Punjabi. You can keep come baat karo, acha, theek hai. So the fact of the matter is that anti-Indianism and Jammu and Kashmir is what binds it. So I wish in the reprint of this book, when it comes out after 2 to 3 years, there is a chapter on identity of Pakistan. It leads to the deep state. So my heartiest compliments. The only problem with this book, allow me?
Yeah, please.
So events are forcing you to write a reprint or a postscript. Now, having said all that, let me do some contemplation. I read the book I also wanted to define deep state. We've been hearing deep state when I joined the army. At least 70s onwards, we know the word deep state. Deep state has been around. I know the history of deep state, as mentioned, Chanakya onwards, etc. What is an anatomy of a deep state? What does deep state have? What should a deep state have? So I was just trying to jot some points, and I'll quote because, at my age, you tend to forget words. What do I think is a deep state? It implies beneath the constitutionally ordained system, that's the government which works under the constitution, it is below. So it's below the constitution, it's below the principles. There is a more deeper and a potent force that controls the nation. That's what I thought is a deep state should be. Something which is much below the constitution and the government. It implies that there is a unified force that's embedded into a country, into a nation. It has its own agenda, and it means to undermine the decisions taken by the elected government. So that, I think, is a deep state. Something which is not visible, but it is cohesive itself. It combines together. It takes a decision which a government ought to be taking, or undermines the system that the elected government is taking. Pakistan has had 31 prime ministers. 31 प्राइम मिनिस्टर. एक भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने 5 साल पूरे नहीं किया. Not one prime minister has done his full tenure, including Nawaz Sharif in the last time. He just came too close to it before that corruption case came up, and he was thrown out of there in Panama and he went across to London. So the power of a deep state derives from the control of the mechanisms of power, and it remains invisible. It's like a shadow government. That I think is deep state. That's it. I mean, I'm trying to just put across my words to it, not in the definition given in the book. But that's what I think. It's a shadow government. So, who are the candidates to this becoming deep state? I would say Lockheed Martin is deep state. Why? But Lockheed Martin makes F-16s. They want the Pentagon to buy F-16s. That's why they want Pentagon to fight a war in wherever jahan ladai hui lad lo, because you will require F-16s to be made. So Lockheed Martin or such Raytheons, they will like some Americans to fight a war always, because that war allows their military-industrial complex to grow. They become a deep state. So they make the policy of warfare, not the government. They incite issues. So I would reckon that this becomes a deep state. Quietly, the industrial complex of America, which is, America has been fighting, it's the most violent nation after 1950. No other nation has seen more violence than America from 1950. This is what Americans do. I mean, see, you are all pol science students, you know, if there is a war, Americans are involved there. So that's, I think, is the deep state there. Military you have mentioned, intelligences you mentioned, and I'm sure Dr. Chawle's experience had here. Judiciary is also a deep state in many ways. So it's all a subterranean level working of a government. It's all in plain sight. Everybody is in plain sight, but you can't put the dots together to say what is the deep state. They say establishment. The word used is establishment. Establishment means ISI, ISPR, Pak Army, Pak Chief. They call the word establishment because they know that the deep state has no more in subterranean level, it's come up on the fore. So that is, I think, a euphemism for a deep state. And because of that, they know that with the chief across there, DGSI will take a call. They will also manipulate the judiciary. You see Nazam Sethi comes every day. You hear Nazam Sethi every day, and he writes, a very respected fellow in Pakistan, and you know, Friday Times ka editor hai. You say, he every day says, ye deep state, establishment ne judiciary ko bol ke decision dila diya. That Imran Khan is corrupt, and he should be thrown out for 6 months. This is it. So that was it. Now, before I end, the mood question. Will all this continue as is happening hitherto, or is there a change happening in Pakistan? Is a question that all students of political science must answer. You know, we, especially the men in uniform, keep talking Pakistan is a threat. And we enjoy a two-front threat. Pakistan is 20 million, give or take 20 crore people, I mean, give or take 1 or 2 crores. We are 140. We have a $300 trillion economy growing at 7.5%. Pakistan is in some millions and not even growing. We have a defense budget of $72 billion. Pakistan defense budget is $7 billion. Are they a threat to us? If we say Pakistan is a threat to us, then we are not worthy spending $72 billion and having an armed forces of 14 lakh. Pakistan is an irritant. It's an irritant. It's a pain. But one must not call it a threat. That belittles our great country, India. So that's a moot question that I wish to raise, is that if Pakistan is not a threat, then at subterranean level, what is happening in Pakistan? I wish to contend today, and this is just not outside the book, you know, something out of the course. That's the way to judge you or sort you out. I think Pakistan is changing, and it is changing dramatically, and it's changing in the course of last quite some time. It's been now 14 years they have had some kind of democracy. After Musharraf left in 2008, and Musharraf was also some kind of semi-elected in the last years, he became president. But they are changing, and they're changing dramatically, especially because of the phenomena called Imran Khan, who has taken the establishment by its horns. And I'm not saying deep state, the establishment by its horns, which make the DG ISI come out of the closet. It's a direct slap on the army. He is not allowing the chief of the army to be announced who is retiring on 27th of this month, Imran Khan, and is forcing elections. So Pakistan today stands as a prime candidate to become another colored revolution. If it happens like that, it would be with attendant problems to other neighboring countries, including us. No revolution actually comes out safely for the neighboring countries. It will be as tough for us. But we hope it doesn't happen. I wish to end by saying that there is a change happening, and I think this change tells us and tells Dr. Jyoti Patania to start taking the pen and rewriting the book again to come out in 2 years afresh. Because that, whether you call it a reprint or you call it volume 2, will be what makes a difference. And I wish you the best, Dr. Pathanian, to your job. Last time we went together to address a think tank in Kathmandu, and I remember Madhav Nepal, the Prime Minister, was there that day, and we spoke our mind in an audience which was quite anti-us, because I know the audience, I'm Gurkhas. So that is an issue here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Dr. Adil Rashid is a research fellow and coordinator of the Counter-Terrorism Center at the Manohar Parrikar Institute for Strategic Studies and Analysis. He has authored books such as Countering the Radical Narrative and ISIS, Raised to Armageddon. He is also writing a new book on the cross currents of political Islam in West Asia and South Asia.
Now that we have a more open discussion, I can say that if you see the gangs of Wasipur and you see Manoj Bajpayee doing a brilliant act, Nawazuddin was asked, now what? He was really, because after such a great performance, he said, now I'm the hero and now I have to out-top Manoj Bajpayee. How do I do that? So he said, I'll just be myself. I'll just go back to a very basic kind of a structure. And I would rather stick to the script which I have written. And even if if the talk looks like a drone, perhaps it could have an anticlimactic effect. But I would say that it is an absolute privilege for me to be here once again. I would like to be I'm grateful to this distinguished audience, especially General Rakesh Sharma, Dr. Shriram Chaulia, Dr. Pathania, and all the academicians and bright students here. This one is something very special to me because it is already one of my favorite books, and I get the chance to actually discuss it in front of this audience. It has been said that it is a very timely publication, but I would like to differ here because I think this subject and a book on this, of this great importance, there should have been many more Indians who should have written on this much earlier. And still I would like to say it is a very welcome and a very satisfying edition, and I congratulate you for this, ma'am. And I would say, der aaye par bahut durust aaye. I would like to congratulate the author not just for her pioneering effort in the choice of a subject, which is very challenging and difficult to actually write a book on, but also for actually going to primary sources of research, which very few Indian researchers actually like to do. I find that this research is really a flag bearer in that respect. The other great thing which I liked about this book is that it actually deals with a very abstruse concept, which is the deep state. And there was always this fear that it would become, as General Saab mentioned, it would become very philosophical, it would have a very prolix and involved kind of a writing, and that it would become too conceptualized for the average reader to understand. So I like the conceptualization of it and the structure of the book, which strikes you, and also having completely researched the subject, and then you feel yourself so confident that you can explain it in a very simple, though not simplistic manner. So that thing is something which is wonderful about this book. But when we talk of the deep state, we are generally referring to the totalitarian state. And I would only like to say here, sir, that it is only in very well-established states that you can keep these organs at a subterranean level. Weaker states will always bear and reveal the so-called deep state actors. So in proto-states or failing states, you find these institutions of the army and the bureaucracy actually showing themselves. It just shows how weak that state actually is. And so you can see like a machine working where there is no covering on it, and a car is working with perhaps no bonnet, or you can see the engine working somehow. And of course, when we talk of the US military-industrial complex, no other than American presidents like Eisenhower and Kennedy have talked about it, and how they come in the way of the functioning of civilian governments. I liked all the chapterizations, but definitely the USP, the unique selling proposition, is the ISPR chapter. That is a standout. I have not read anything like it anywhere, because I was looking for something on influence operations, and because I have written a book on counter-narratives and also on strategic communication, and the way Pakistan has actually worked on this since the time of its independence, and the way you have done the research and completely updated it, and with social media you have given extensive coverage to it. And not just social media, but also radio stations you're talking about, television programs, newspaper articles, mobile games, and all that. I have not seen any research, even in any Western publication, to my mind, I have not come across that. So that is something which is really a significant achievement, for which I would like to congratulate you even further. The only problem with this book is that it whets your appetite. It is an irritant to thought. And that is the result why he actually came up with such certain contrarian views also, which is actually a plus. A book should always instigate questioning and debate. I, after reading the book, wanted to know a little more about the ISI. I wanted to know the narco-criminal connect. How does it actually operate internationally, which I did not find to that extent. How does the ISI and these people operate, and their modus operandi? If something more of that sort would have been there, it would have been perhaps much more sensational. But this is a wish list, and perhaps which you could look into. For a book so informative, with so much research and so many references, that is something, although it has a treasure trove of documents which is in the appendix, and I really like that, and the tabulation and the information, that is wonderful. But I think the index should have been there. And it is definitely, if anyone wants to understand Pakistan, you cannot understand Pakistan if you do not know about these essential institutions. And so this is the go-to book, this is the reference book. And every student of Pakistani politics or the Pakistani state should read your book. And it is a great effort. Thank you very much, Dr. Pathania, and thank you very much for your time.